Hello and welcome, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Matt Gets It podcast. This is a sports debate show discussing the biggest sports topics. I'm your host, Matt Martinez. That's Billy Ryan. And we got some great topics to discuss today, folks. The NBA playoffs are currently in full swing. We got the current first round matchups to talk about, how those are transpiring. The latest from the MLB regular season. Some surprising players off to some interesting starts, huh, Billy? Wouldn't you say?
Hot starts to say the least.
Plus, folks, we got the latest announcement out of Colorado and their jersey retirement. So, great conversation we're going to have there, folks. That's pretty close there to Billy. That's his college team. So, very interesting to hear what Billy has to say. First things first, folks. The 2025 NFL Draft, which will take place on Thursday, April 24th, which extends then into the 25th and 26th. So it's a 3-day draft for those of you unaware. The first round is April 21st, and that's the only round that will take place on that day. Rounds 2 and 3 are followed the next day, the 25th, and then rounds 4 through 7 on the third day. This year's draft will take place from Lambeau Field in Green Bay, Wisconsin. Legendary stadium, great football town there. Haven't been there myself, but their fans are diehard fans. They travel well. Shout out to the Cheeseheads, folks. The Tennessee Titans own the number one pick in this year's draft. And Billy, it's pretty unanimous, wouldn't you say, about who the Titans are going to select?
I think pretty much almost every single person can agree that Cam Ward is going to be that first person off the board, and the Tennessee Titans are in kind of desperate need of a good quarterback.
Yeah, this is going to be, if they do select Cam Ward, this will be like their third quarterback in the past five drafts. They draft Will Levis, Malik Willis. So hopefully, if they do go with Ward, he brings stability to that position for that franchise. Post Derrick Henry, need
Really,
to establish a new identity on offense. Let go of AJ Brown, DeAndre Hopkins. They all left. Vrabel's no longer there. That culture that he set. So stay tuned to see what Tennessee does, folks, on Thursday when they're on the clock. Following the Tennessee Titans is the Cleveland Browns at number 2, and the Browns are in an interesting spot, Billy. What are they going to do? They're somewhat in need of a quarterback. Do they bolster that defense even more? Do they try to add an offensive weapon? What do you think?
well, it's also I think it really has to do a little bit with the Tennessee Titan picks. I think if they pull a dumb move and don't take Cam Ward, it really kind of stirs up a lot of the picks on the draft board. I think some good for
Hmm.
some real bad for others. So
Yeah.
I think in my mind, if the Tennessee Titans don't take Cam Ward, you got to take him in that two spot, being the
Yeah.
Cleveland Browns. I
Gotcha.
think they are in kind of a weird spot. Like I think they have the option to get Travis Hunter. They have a few other really good DNs or D tackles they could kind of pick with. Ultimately the Cleveland Browns could build, like you were saying, build off of that line with a Miles Garrett, and he's a force to be reckoned with by himself. If you give him a little something else to kind of take different blocks or different diversions off of him, he's going to go really far and have a great season. So I do think
Oh,
it's
definitely.
I do think it's a smart choice to take a DN, but with Travis Hunter being on the board, it might be a good time to give some secondary help. And I know the Cleveland Browns did just kind of have a bigger signing earlier this year on kind of giving extensions to other defensive backs, but I think it's a smart choice.
Yeah. If Hunter, can help on the defensive side of the ball. Ultimately, I know he's, been vocal about still playing on the offensive side too. He wants to be a receiver, not just a cornerback or one or the other. He wants to do both. So if he's able to provide any type of production, that just helps the Browns tremendously because they just they have talent. Just for whatever reason, they just can't put it together. Whether that's scheme, personnel, that's for a different topic on another day, folks. But moving on, the third pick in the draft belongs to the New York Giants. And Billy, this is where a lot of people think that the draft starts to get really interesting because they think, the first two picks, like we're saying, is going to be Ward and then Hunter. So if the Giants go in the direction which a lot of people believe they're going to do so, which is draft Shador Sanders, he's had multiple visits to there. They've been scouting him religiously. They've been to numerous workouts of his. They've held private workouts. They were at his, Colorado Pro Day. So do you think the Giants go with Shador Billy, or do you have a prediction that he's going elsewhere?
I lean a little bit of both ways for Shador. Uh, First things first, the New York Giants, I think, are going to be probably the number one team that's going to be under heat on the draft this year.
hmm
With the release of Saquon, them not drafting the right quarterback, we've seen the videos of them and the kid in the GM's kids sitting in their office talking about who he should take, and he should have listened to his damn kids. He'd have had much better pick. So I think there's going to be a lot of pressure on the draft to make good, to
hmm
make good for the Giants this year. With that being said, I think it's a very reasonable pick for the Giants to get Shador. I don't know if Shador is going to want to go there. I think his also dad, prime time is going to have a decision on what that quarterback room is going to look like, and or
hmm
what goes on for his son, and he's been pretty vocal about that himself. I also think, with the next, or I forget if it's the next pick. I could be mistaken. But I know the New
Uh,
Orleans Saints had a really high, a big eye for Shador Sanders, and I think that's a great fit for him. I think he has a lot of weapons to work with, but he's also got a little bit of a running game coming in. He can hand the ball off to Kamara and or pass it to him out of the
hmm
backfield, so he's always kind of got a dump off option. So I think, in my mind, I like Shador in a Saints jersey more than I see him in a New York Giants jersey, but that's just me.
No, and so with the Giants, it's interesting to see what they're going to do because so they brought in James Winston, they brought in Russell Wilson. Do they still invest in a quarterback with that high of a draft pick, right, Billy? So,
Yeah,
and we previously talked about this, with Russell Wilson, when you're bringing in that caliber of player, or with, I should say, that type of player with his resume, he's gonna play, right? So if with Wilson there, like that means Sanders would have to sit, correct? If he indeed does go to the Giants, or do you think maybe he just takes over that mentorship role then?
I think he would. I think he would take over that mentorship role well.
Uh-huh.
I
Gotcha.
think that would be the way they go. I think I've seen a lot of takes on ESPN and whatnot on are we starting rookie quarterbacks too early on in their career? And like obviously there's the outliers like a Jaden Daniels who came out and had a great rookie season and showed he could perform on that level.
Mm-hmm.
But we've seen it with the Tennessee Titans over the last few years of them getting a great quality first round quarterback, and they just don't get comfortable. They don't get their feet under them, and I like them going a different direction there. But like I said, I think he could be that good role model and mentor for
Yeah.
Shador for that 1-2 seasons. Get him some good coaching under his belt, get a good mindset, thought process, because he's got all the confidence in the world. That was never the issue. But it's also around the offensive line for the Giants. Like it's not
Yeah.
a great spot to be as a quarterback.
Yeah. And so when it comes to Shador, I have a completely different take. I don't think he goes to either one of those teams, Billy. So this is my take from left field, so to speak. So I think Sanders is gonna be a Pittsburgh Steeler. So they have the 21st pick in the draft. So whether he falls to 21 or they trade up for him, I think he's gonna be there in Pittsburgh just because there's no one really there that's established in that quarterback room. They have Mason Rudolph and they have someone else on their roster currently, but does that put Pittsburgh, over the hump? You know, with Mike time with excuse me, with Mike Tomlin at the helm, Pittsburgh never had a losing season. They're always competitive. They're always right there in the thick of the playoff push. So I think you know, that if Sanders goes there to Pittsburgh, has that established coach there in Tomlin, who, from my understanding, has always had a good relationship with any quarterback yet. Maybe except Justin Fields, right?
Right, yeah.
Yeah, like or maybe even Wilson. So maybe I retract that statement. But the thing with Pittsburgh is, Billy, they don't have a second round pick in this year's draft because they gave it up for DK Metcalf. They traded for him, so they have limited draft capital to work with if they're trying to trade up. But when you trade for DK Metcalf, who's a wide receiver number one, and they were in the playoff push this past season, it's going all in, right? Like you have to go all in if you want to be competitive, especially in the AFC because Kansas City is just so dominant. So why not go for a quarterback, top level quarterback on a rookie contract, right? Instead of having to go and pay a veteran a bunch of money in free agency.
Baby, baby, baby. I think that's actually
Yeah.
the
Yeah, sorry folks, I don't have the soundboard for this week's episode, but that would be the perfect time, Billy. Yes, sir. Appreciate you. And then I'm just gonna hit this too, folks. Put on that take, like, hey, just hands up. Hey, like, that's
hey.
just me.
Yeah, I think that's a beautiful take. I think you're right. I think the coaching's there. He's got the weapons to succeed there. And Mike Tomlin ultimately probably the most winning percentage coach that we've seen in a minute. Just gonna put that.
No, definitely. I mean, those guys, like I said, never lost or never had a losing season. 500 every year or better. Before the added game, after the added game, 16-week schedule, 17-week schedule, it don't matter. This guy doesn't lose, and I would kill for that in a head coach because
Damn
obviously, look at the hat I'm wearing right now.
right.
Just 8-8. That's like I tell all my family and friends that I'm like, I just want 8-8. You know what I mean? Like, but I digress, folks. Moving on. But sticking with Shador Sanders and his teammate, the jersey retirement announcement out of Colorado. So Billy, you're a Buffs fan. Uh, I will let you take the lead on this segment here.
Yep. So I think it's a little bit kind of crazy from where we're at. So if you're not aware, the CU Buffs just retired Shador and Travis Hunter's jerseys, with them only really being in the program for a year. And that's just blatantly kind of laying it out there and how it is.
Hmm.
And there's been a lot of skeptical takes on this one as well around, they're just doing it because it's Dion's, sons. He's got the influence to kind of pull for that type of thing. And to be honest, I'm right on board with that. It's not like they're out here setting, career records, school records year after year. Like obviously maybe 1 year records of touchdowns, throwing yards, things like that. Don't get me wrong, they've done a lot of great things and they have promoted the CU football program to something that they haven't seen since the late '90s when I think they won a,
Hmm.
a '97 championship. With that being said, like what was Dion's take on this? Like what I wanted to see the qualifications on why or who gets the records for this. I think there's only been I think
Hmm.
about 4 or 5 other players to get that honor of getting a jersey retired, and in my eyes, you have to do something truly, truly special to get that, and I don't think they deserved it.
Yeah. So just piggybacking off what you were saying there, Billy. So Travis Hunter and Shador Sanders are the fifth and sixth player, respectively, all time to have their jersey retired at Colorado, and it's a storied program. It's 135-year history there, and they're just the fifth and sixth player to have that accomplishment. So with Hunter, I could see it, being the Heisman winner, being a hybrid, playing both sides of the field. I get that. I I understand his jersey retirement completely, and with Shador. if I'm not mistaken, he won. He said, I think he set a few records. Uh, and he also won some type of quarterback award. I don't want to say the name incorrectly, so I'm not gonna try. But to my understanding, he did win some type of award at the quarterback position. And so, Billy, the reason behind the jersey retirement. So this is coming from the athletic administration. Travis Hunter and Shador Sanders are both great buffs and exceptional talents who have been tremendous representatives of our program and of our university and led our team to back to national prominence. That was said by athletic director, excuse me, Rick George. Uh, so the thing with George, folks, he was the assistant athletic director for football operations when the program won its only national title, and like Billy was saying in the 90s. So he has ties there to the university, so he is familiar with the program and the type of players that have come through. George then went on to say, recognizing the accomplishments of a Heisman Trophy winner and record-setting quarterback who ushered in this new era of Colorado football, now doesn't now does not detract from accomplishments, excuse me, of the past. Rather, it adds to the rich legacy of CU football that has been passed down over the years by everyone who has worn a CU uniform. So, Billy, it sounds to me that George is saying because of this new era of football, the type of uh, hype that they brought back to Colorado. Correct me if I'm wrong, Billy. There was for the years prior to them arriving there, Colorado struggled football wise, correctly?
Oh yeah, we were bad. Typical losing seasons.
Yeah.
Not making bowl games most years.
hmm Yeah. So with them bringing back that level of excitement and hype, that is why the athletic department is, you know, voting to retire the jerseys. However, not taking away anything that those guys accomplished, well deserved, everything that they've done at the collegiate level. Like you said, Hunter, a Heisman winner, and then Shador, a record setting quarterback himself, can't take that away from them. So
Right.
I think they deserve the honor. It's just a little interesting or kind of not maybe premature, like how it's happened so quickly, right? Because like if there's players from their last championship run who have not gotten in yet,
Mhm.
what's the real justification, right?
Right, and it's like it seems peculiar. You know what I mean? I think that was
Yeah.
the word
Uh-huh.
where it's like a little
Mm-hmm.
fishy, kind of weird that
Yeah.
dad is kind of handing out. But I did, I will put my foot in my mouth a little bit. It seems like Shador did set 5 records at CU.
Yeah.
Single season passing yards, single season passing touchdowns, career
Yeah.
passing yards at almost 7,500.
Yeah.
Career passing touchdowns at 64. So uh, he performed very well at CU. Granted,
Mm-hmm.
the first year, whatever, he didn't have a whole lot to kind of deal with. That going in, it's like okay, he did set some good records. So I will put my foot
Yeah.
in my mouth on that. I can kind of see where from the athletic director and all the other standpoints of like, hey,
Yeah.
they're finally making CU football fun again. And that's a
Mm-hmm.
huge thing for Colorado, considering the Broncos are not great. I mean, we're on the up and coming. We're doing okay. We typical. I think we were what.
Turnaround year this past year, I'll give you guys that.
So it's I think that just shows though. Like I think Colorado fans are so passionate. I put us up there with
Yeah.
the Philly fans, except for that's in its own mind. But they're so passionate about sports that we show up for the terrible Rockies was probably a better example. We're typically top 10, top 15 in people in attendance. That's
Yeah, every year. Mm-hmm.
it just shows like the last year the Rockies were the worst team or the second worst team in baseball. So I think it is doing a great thing of bringing the passion of college football back, and I think it is going to be making things more competitive. Within the different divisions, it's not going to just be
Mm-hmm.
Shador or see you at the bottom of the list for whatever program. So it is nice to see that we're good again. So
Hmm.
I will, like I said, I'll put my foot in my mouth. I think I might have been a little harsh at first, but I am coming
Yeah,
around to the idea. But I do think it's still a little peculiar with the situation with Dion.
maybe just because it's 1 year after they left campus. Do you think why? Because it's so soon.
I think so. Like you were saying, I think it's
Hmm.
just like really soon. Like they didn't. Obviously they did great things for the program, but that '97 team won a national championship. If that's not
Yeah,
bringing the most recognition to football, what is right? And the fact
yeah.
is, like, that team probably had one or two players that could have be put on that pedestal and that list. So it would have been nice to see maybe an additional '97 or an alumni on.
Someone else. Yeah, like an additional player also get their jersey retired, right? Like maybe like an actual class of people getting their jersey retired. I don't know how maybe Colorado. I don't know if they have like a.
I have no
Is
idea.
it? I don't. Is football like? Is it Ring of Honor? Field something like that?
I think
Maybe
that
that's
sounds
too.
right.
Yeah, it's like too old school, right? Of a term, maybe I don't
Right.
know, but uh, uh, interesting question though, Billy. So man, like if those two get their jersey retired so soon, like when does Tebow get his retired at Florida, right? Like when does Vince Young get retired at Texas? Correct me if I'm mistaken, and they already did so. Like I'm sorry, but
Right.
like
Yeah,
those types of quarterbacks, right? And like they have yet to get their jersey retired if they haven't already. Like when like maybe this speeds up the process, right? For other legendary quarterbacks
right. And I think
at the college level.
right. I think the only gripe or my thing to pick at is like you look at the level of those guys. Like you got to look
Hmm.
back at all the people who potentially have, like, you have Emmett Smith, who was probably retired jersey from Florida. You're like, okay, deserved. Like,
Yeah.
so you like, just to say that, and then you're like, okay, well, like Vince Young at Texas, you're like, didn't have a great NFL career, but damn, did he play the best that ever seen at Texas? I think he got robbed of a Heisman from Reggie Bush, but that was probably one of the best Rose Bowl games I think anybody's ever watched in a while. Um, Damn, that's a great point, though. It's a great point.
Yeah. Possibly another day for to discuss that. But again, folks, who don't want to discredit Travis Hunter or Shador in any way, Billy uh was coming around to it at first, maybe a little hesitant, but well deserved. Everything that they accomplished. They great players, and hey, if they go 2 and 3 in the draft, I mean, then maybe that even validates the decision to do so quickly even more, right?
Oh, I agree. And like I said, Dion's still going to be there, and I think he
Hmm.
was probably one of the number one hype man. And then, like, obviously, him building a good team of with Travis and Shador backing that up.
Yeah,
Still great things to come for Colorado.
definitely. Moving on, folks, the latest from the MLB regular season and the biggest surprises thus far. Billy, for me personally, over in the MLB, the biggest surprise thus far from a team standpoint is the Atlanta Braves for me. They are currently 9-13 and 6.5 games back in the in the NL East. NL East is really good team, multiple teams in there that are going to be uh jockeying for postseason position. You got the Mets, your Mets, the Phillies, right? Phillies always come alive. But
Me,
the
Washington.
Braves, just shocking to see where they're at currently, albeit they're 6-4 in their last 10 and they're on a 4-game win streak. But for them to be 6.5 back this early, I think is really surprising. And the fact that Chris Sale, their ace, the reigning Cy Young winner, is winless this far into the year after 5 starts, and he has a 6.17 ERA. That is shocking to me.
No, and I think you hit it right ahead. I don't think anybody who's a baseball fan thought the Braves were
Hmm.
going to start out this terrible. And I mean, don't
Yeah,
get me wrong, they're dealing with a couple people who are injured, and kind of moving some of the roster things around. Like I think Matt Olson was out, and he's just recently kind of back. But you're right. Like even Ozzy Albies, who's always a fairly consistent player on the field, is
Mm-hmm.
struggling, especially at the plate.
Yep.
Um, it's something wild. Like you're saying, they got the former Cy Young, and they got Spencer Strider. They have some other really good young talent on and not only in the bullpen, in the rotation, and just in their day to day lineup.
Yeah.
There's got to be something in the water down there. Like I don't know what
As I sip my water.
it's just like a crazy thing because we're used to seeing the
Yeah.
Braves being the top of the division, and everybody like
Mm-hmm.
the Mets and the Phillies, toughing it out
Are
for so
chasing them, right? Yeah, are chasing them.
So, crazy to see, what's kind of going on there. I don't know. I think it is maybe just a little bit of the baseball blues. I'm sure they're probably going to
Mm-hmm.
have an explosive part of the mid year once everybody kind of gets settled down, but
Yeah.
we'll see.
Yeah. Stay tuned for that, folks. It's hard to believe that they won't get hot at some point in the coming weeks, right? All it takes, this, Billy, it takes one series for things to start clicking, right?
Yep.
And then it just feeds into the entire team. The hitters are feeding off the energy that the staff is giving the pitching staff, and vice versa. Everyone's more confident. Everyone's believing in each other when you're winning, right? So
Absolutely.
for me, that's the biggest surprise from a team standpoint. Do you have a team that has surprised you, Billy, this far?
I have a couple of teams that are kind of surprising me right now. One of them is coming out of the AL Central. We're seeing the Detroit Tigers lead that division. I know that is, don't get me wrong, one of the more struggling divisions in baseball.
Yeah,
But Detroit's been on the down and down for the last 5 or so years. So ever since like kind of the retirement of Miggy, even while Miggy was still there, kind
yeah.
of
Those last 2 years he was there were just like it was like a prolonged farewell tour, right?
right, truly, truly it was. So to see them coming out at 14-9 and leading that division and honestly playing some pretty good baseball, I think are they currently in the series with the Yankees, or was that
Uh,
I could be tripping.
no, the Yankees did previously just play them,
Okay, okay.
so yeah.
All right, but I also have a shout out, not more or less a team, but a division. There's something in the water in California between the Dodgers, the Padres, and the Giants. But overall,
Hmm.
then you got the Diamondbacks in that division as well, and then obviously the Rockies, the worst team in baseball, are currently in this division with only 4 wins.
Yeah, less than five.
That which is well, that's a different note, but that is so sad. The saddest thing I've seen. But anyway, like
Right.
the NL West, I that's going to be something that's duking out. I obviously think the Dodgers and the Padres, well, mostly the Dodgers, could have a series where they really extend the lead over everybody. I think they're a definitive one spot. But to see the Giants and the Diamondbacks fighting for a 2-3 spot is something that I think has been missing in the NL West for a long, long time. It used to be just San Francisco competing for second place, well, every single year, and the Dodgers just absolutely terrorizing the division. So I think it is a good thing to kind of see that division kind of fluffing around. If the Rockies would get better, that'd be awesome, but that's not going to happen
Yeah,
anytime soon. Sell the team. You heard it here. So we'll see what that looks like, but that's kind of my shout out in terms of teams.
got you. So, I mean, that NL West, bro, is just brutal, right?
Brutal.
Brutal. Three, probably three of those teams are gonna make the postseason.
I
You know what I mean?
wild cards, like probably two wild card spots, if not. You know what I mean? So I
Hmm.
see it.
Definitely. I could see that happening too. From an individual perspective, Billy, are there any players that have surprised you?
I always have to get a shout out to my New York Mets in terms of players. Pete Alonso is coming around absolutely raking right now. He's got 24 RBIs, and he's swinging right around 330, 340, which is, we're used to seeing a little bit more production and power out of him, but
Yeah.
I like this singles double hitting Alonso where he runs into a couple bombs here and there. Um, I think that's some production in the New York lineup that we've been missing for a while. But I know you being a first baseman, you probably have a couple different shout outs because it seems like there's a little bit of movement in the league.
Yeah, I got a soft spot for the first baseman, that's great position to play in my opinion. But like you're saying though with Pete Alonso, I'll give credit where credit is due. He he is doing a great job to begin the year. Coming into the year, it was really hard to see where he was going to end up because contract wise and money wise, like he was seeking a certain amount of years. The Mets, they just paid Juan Soto essentially $1 billion. I'm exaggerating, folks, but
Damn.
it's pretty close. So, what 750 bill, right? Seven.
Yeah, it was 750. So it's closer to a billion than it is, 50, 500.
Yeah. So there wasn't too sure what the asking or what the price was going to be if they were going to come to an agreement. They ultimately did, but it was so important for the Mets to keep Alonso because they need someone in the lineup to protect Soto, and he's benefiting tremendously right now, Billy, from having Soto
Yeah.
in front of him, right? He's seeing better pitching because pitchers would rather face Alonso than face Soto, right?
Out every time.
Yeah, so Alonso absolutely crushing the ball right now. He's even legging out triples.
With his awkward leg running.
Yes, dude.
With
Yeah, I
his,
mean,
I saw the other day somebody quoted online. It was like he's got that Fred Flintstone run, and it made me laugh so hard.
yeah, that is a good one. I did not see that one, but that is a good one right there. But yeah, and he's not the only first baseman, Billy. You kind of hinted at it. My boy Paul Goldschmidt. I said this to be, prior to the year. I was like, what a great addition for the Yankees. Even though I'm biased, right-handed first baseman, but this guy, the power is not there, but man, is this guy a world-class hitter, right? This guy is second in batting average currently. He's hitting 372. 372, Paul Goldschmidt, who is on the north side of 34, I believe. I think he's like, what, 35, 36, Billy?
Correct.
Yeah, so, I mean, for him to still be hitting 372 right now, and he has 32 hits, which is second also amongst all MLB players, behind only his teammate Aaron Judge in both categories, who's on his way probably to another MVP if he keeps this up. Different topic, different discussion another day. But Paul Goldschmidt, ladies and gentlemen, is or has been what the Yankees have needed in the lineup for a long period of time. Someone who puts the ball in play, someone who plays surefire defense, and Goldschmidt, when he's up to bat, I mean, he's hitting even leadoff at times under Aaron Boone, which is, as a Yankees fan, I get so frustrated with this dude constantly changing the damn lineup. You know what I mean? It's like, bro, like, I get it, like, injuries and stuff, you gotta shuffle, maybe certain matchups, but it's literally almost every game that it's a different lineup, and Goldschmidt is hitting leadoff at times, and I mean, today he was hitting cleanup. So like that just goes to show you like how versatile he is as a hitter. Like this guy can hit leadoff or he's your cleanup hitter, right? So
100%.
shout out to Paul Goldschmidt. He's among a handful of first basemen currently balling out. Josh Naylor for the Diamondbacks, who 1 year deal. He was with the Guardians last year. He's on the Diamondbacks this year. If he keeps this up, he's gonna get a massive contract. Good for him. His theatrics in the postseason got under my skin. I'm not gonna lie, as a Yankees fan, you know what I mean? I was like, yeah, like, but hey, now that he's in the NL, yeah, I respect it. Good for him. So, but Billy, was there any other players that you think deserve some recognition or need to be pointed out that they're struggling right now?
I want to do one more shout out, and then touch base on the struggling guy. But I want to go into the Oakland Athletics, Tyler Soderstrom. Dude is out here. I think he made his debut in 2023. He's only really played a handful of games in the MLB, but he does have damn near career 400 ABs under his belt. But coming out into a breakout 2025 season, tied for home runs, batting 300, 19 RBIs, and I would say those
Yeah,
numbers would be higher if he wasn't, playing for a team like the Athletics. Granted, they are playing in a AAA ballpark out in California.
yeah,
tough to say, but I do think like obviously regulation size fields. It's not like they're playing at some short porch somewhere.
Hmm.
Um, but again, first baseman coming out here and absolutely mashing baseballs. Like what
Yes, sir.
it's good to see. It's almost like the steroid age of baseball. We were watching the Mark McGuires and all these other people who used to slugfest as a first baseman. So I love to see that turn that around. So
Hmm.
that's one of my shout outs there. Breakout season from such a young talent. Hope to see things kind of carry through for Soderstrom.
Yeah, I mean, what's up with the Athletics like in first baseman, right? I mean, they had Olsen first, like now McGuire in the past, Giambi was there,
Good.
right? Like,
Absolute legends. Played
right?
for Brooklyn Athletics.
Hey,
It's sad to say that
first,
they're not in the Coliseum anymore, but like that is crazy.
heartbreaking. But uh, so Billy, this player that I'm about to mention, he's struggling, but not struggling, right? It's really weird. So the player in question, folks, is Mike Trout, the legendary Mike Trout, who is now a right fielder. You know, he's always been in center field for his entire career up until this point. But Trout is currently tied for third with 8 home runs. So he's crushing the ball, folks. He has 16 RBIs. He's in, middle of the pack, upper echelon. But he's hitting only 184, which is very odd because normally this guy is for his career has been a 285 plus hitter, right, Billy? Like there's even been times where he's hit 300. So
Oh yeah.
for him to be hitting well below 200, but still be hitting this amount of home runs, it's really surprising. So is he struggling or is he like? What do you think, Billy? Is it fair to say he's struggling?
I don't know. I think it's. I mean, I was gonna say, I wonder if he's got like a change up in his swing, but no, it's the typical Mike Trout swing that we've seen the
Mm-hmm.
past 15. I mean,
That on top of the ball, right?
damn right. So it's like
Yeah.
he's making good contact when he hits the ball. Now you just got to hit the ball more. Like I don't know what it looks like in terms of strikeouts
Mm-hmm.
and things like that, or what his breakdown is, or maybe he's just getting a little bit of unluckiness.
Yeah.
But you're right. Like we're used to seeing him fall for Mike Trout, even his miss hits or something, or base knocks for the average guy. But just to kind of
Yeah.
see him weird stat line, like I don't know what's going on there. But I think Mike Trout is going to be the Mike Trout of old. I don't know if necessarily playing center field to right field is going to make a much of a health difference. I always thought that was a little bit weird. He's still playing the outfield. He's going to get a little less action, less movement, but we'll see where it goes.
Yeah. I think Trout's gonna turn it around. Like from a batting average standpoint, you know what I mean?
Right.
His track record speaks for itself. He's too good of a hitter. He uses all parts of the ballpark. I mean, his speed too. Even though he's getting older and has dealt with injuries, this guy could still hustle out an infield hit, right, Billy? Like this guy flies up the line. Like, and his effort's always there. You can't question his effort and his hustle. So
No, you hit it right on the head, and like he's gonna break out of it. It's just a term of when
yeah,
and staying healthy. Like when he does that,
yeah, hmm
he'll be the Mike Trout of old. But when it comes to Mike Trout, there always is the what if, and I know that changes his game tremendously because he used to be a typical 20, 30 bags swipe in a year. Now it's
yep,
like I don't want to injure him, so why would I put him in
hmm
motion ever? Like
yeah.
So I think it ultimately kind of just, changes the way he plays the game. But I think, he's such an adaptable player that he's going to make it work for himself and make it happen.
Yeah, for sure. Just again, it's just so odd seeing that batting average that low.
So
You know what I
I
mean?
would say
But
that for most players, like even if it wasn't Mike Trout, like if we seen, your typical average player, if it was just like the Schwarber effect, right? Where the dude's batting 200, but he hits 40 jacks a year and has 100 RBI. So it's like,
true,
we'll let him
true.
strike out 30% of the time. Just get in there. Like,
Yeah, I get that's a great point you just made, Billy. Like they're not really. I guess average isn't as valued, right, as much as it used to be.
right.
If you're hitting the long ball, what's the difference? Like, great example in Schwarber. even there's other guys that are like that too. Like, as long as they're hitting 30, 40 jacks, it doesn't matter if they're hitting under 240, right? And like that used to be the indication. Like if you're under 240 or under 220, it's like that's when you get a break, right? You know what I mean? Get a couple days off, maybe even a series off, right? Like refocus, recalibrate your swing a bit. But no, nowadays they're still in the lineup no matter if they're hitting that, if they're at that average.
Yeah, and I think that's a little bit of a shift where the culture of baseball goes,
Hmm.
like you were saying, where it. I'd rather like I'll let me get my one, but I'll strike out three other times, but I'll run into that jack because I swing hard.
Yeah,
Kind of a crazy
gotcha.
mentality, but it gets people paid these days. Like we see those A and B options all the time. It's like, hey, would you rather be the A hitter with a 300 average, win two World Series, something else, two other good accolades, or it's like you bat 150, you hit 40 bombs a year, you can't
Yeah.
win the World Series, but you get the 50 million or the $70 million a year contract, and you're like, well,
Hmm.
so yeah.
Long live the home run ball, right, Billy?
The chicks dig the long ball. We said it in
Yes,
the
sir.
first episode.
Next up, folks, we got an update on the current first round matchups in the NBA playoffs. For the listeners unaware, these are the following teams to make the postseason for each of the respective conferences. So in the East, the Cleveland Cavaliers are the top seed, and they are currently up 1-0 on the Miami Heat, who became the first team in NBA play-in tournament history to advance as a 10 seed. So Miami won 2 games on the road just to get into the playoffs, folks. Had to throw that little tidbit out there just as a Heat fan myself. So I apologize for the ego, folks, but that being said, the Cavs dominated game one. They won by 21 points. Uh, Thanks to Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell, and Ty Jerome combining for 85 points, which was hard to see. I expected, Donovan Mitchell to go off, and like I was hoping Garland would be contained, but to see Ty Jerome just cook like that, I was like, what's going on? But shout out to him. He's a finalist for, I believe, Sixth Man of the Year, so he's not like he's no slouch. The Boston Celtics, the number 2 seed, folks, they are up 1-0 on the number 7 Orlando Magic. They defeated them 103 to 86 behind 30 points from Derek White. Buffs fan, did he go to Colorado? Derek White, I believe he
Yeah,
did, right?
he actually ended up starting
Yeah,
at the UCCS for a year and then CU and
yeah,
then DY. Shout out
yeah.
Colorado boy.
So great story, you know what I mean? Like, good for him. He's a great player. But him being on the Celtics frustrates me. That's besides the point. The Knicks and Pistons are currently tied 1 game apiece. The Pistons won game 2 last night, so they got one on the road. Game 3 now heads back to Detroit. Great series there. The Indiana Pacers cruised past the Bucks 117 to 98. 6 Pacers reached double figures, but it was Pascal Siakam who led the charge with 25 points. Game 2 is currently underway as we speak, Billy. So we'll see if Milwaukee can even the series or if Indiana goes up 2-0. Over in the Western Conference, folks, the top seeded Oklahoma City Thunder are up 1-0. They demolished the Memphis Grizzlies, who got the 8th seed. So Memphis lost the first play-in tournament to Golden State. Great game that one was, but they lost that one. Had to then defeat the Dallas Mavericks to get into the playoffs. But it was a blowout, folks. My goodness, it was one-sided, and saying that is an understatement, right, Billy?
Oh, it was so bad. Like I think everybody at halftime started changing to any other game that was on possible,
Mm-hmm.
even if it was
Yeah.
a replay.
Man,
Atrocious.
if you're a Grizzlies fan there for game one, that was probably brutal.
Oh my god, I couldn't imagine. What
Brutal.
was it? 50, 45, 50 points?
50-point loss.
Oh my god! Like that's got to be one. That's got to set an NBA record.
Yeah, it's up there. It's definitely up there. Or is the record, you know what I mean?
Yeah, the worst playoff loss in maybe NBA history.
Hmm.
Crazy.
Yeah. So, game two is also underway as we speak. So maybe we'll see how that goes. Excuse me, folks. The number two seed, the Houston Rockets, they dropped game one at home to the number seven seeded Golden State Warriors, 95-85. Game two is tomorrow on Wednesday, so we'll see if Houston can even the series up there. The 3-6 matchup, the three-seeded Lakers also lost game one at home. LA was beaten by the Minnesota Timberwolves 117-95. Game two is later tonight, Tuesday night, so we'll see how King James and Luca respond there. That's a very interesting series there, Billy. And then the last series over in the West, the four-seeded Nuggets and the five-seeded Clippers, they are currently tied one game apiece. Game two happened yesterday. Billy, that was a tremendous game.
No, great game, back and forth game, pretty much the whole game. Tough loss.
Mm-hmm.
I think both teams played really well. I would say like even me as a Nuggets fan, I was like, we got this. We're locking them up.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I thought we were gonna come in and close it out in Denver and make way with it. So that loss gets me nervous. The Clippers came to play.
Ooh, what's the nervous meter, Billy?
Dude, you got to hope for the Nuggets to come back strong. Like you got to come out, you got to play hard. No
Mm-hmm.
coach too. With what we're looking at. Well, I mean, obviously we have interim coach, but um, I think the lack of leadership on the management level gets me nervous going into playoffs. Like obviously, I don't know what the Denver. I think that every Denver fan expects to go second, third round, and hopefully give yourself a conference run, but.
Yeah.
Um, the Clippers came to play, man. Like James Harden was looking great. Kawhi Leonard is a dog as always. Tough matchups.
So playoff Kawhi.
Ah, maybe goaded. Maybe one of the best players ever. I would love to see some stats on that.
That 39-point performance he put up last night was masterful.
I mean, dude, it's
Like,
it's effortless looking. It's like him and Jokic were
mm-hmm,
both like obviously when you watch Jokic play, he looks awkward, but his play style, like he's get buckets, he's making plays. When you look at Kawhi,
mm-hmm.
it's just so fundamentally strong. It's crazy.
Dude, just two dribbles, pop, pop, rise up. You know what I mean? Like, back down, fade away. Like, you know what I mean? Like, pull up dribble. It just, dude, he got to his spots with ease, man. I mean, if he had Murray on him, he was like, I'm posting up every single time I have Murray on me. And then if Gordon's on me, I'm gonna make him chase me a little bit, make him, have to defend laterally, not just stay stationary ISO ball. But hey, even James Harden looked like the old James Harden there for a bit, right?
Yeah, I mean, I would say James Harden struggled a little early on. I think he had like
Mm-hmm.
three turnovers, like real early on in the game, but ended up finding his way. And he's just an
Yeah,
elite scorer, so you can never really count him out. Once he gets hot, he's hot.
yeah. Once he figures it out, right?
Right.
And then, and then when you look at the Nuggets, Jamal Murray and Jokic, bro, that two-man game is just so lethal still. Like Jamal Murray, how he's able to just score off the bounce like that, right?
And I love Jamal, but he's like watching those games are kind of hit and miss, where it's like sometimes he misses the easy mid range jump shot that should be knocking down from the free throw line, but then he makes the acrobatic fading shot from a corner, and you're like,
Mm-hmm.
probably shouldn't have shot that, and then he makes it, and you're like, good pull. Like, I don't know.
Right. Mm-hmm. And
but
then Westbrook's energy, right?
you gotta love it. I think he brings a good dynamic of good veteranness. He was an elite player in his time, and I think he understands his role now and does a great job
Mm-hmm.
about being the role player that the Nuggets need. But with him being on the floor, like you gotta tough matchups. Like, yeah, you got to keep either Christian Brown in or you got to put a Russell Westbrook, and that's two tough choices. But I mean, when they're subbing out in and out of games, I think it's kind of the players that you want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Man, just the matchups like for the Clippers and the Nuggets, like individual matchups are so interesting, man. Like at times there was Aaron Gordon, he was guarding James Harden, and then he was on Kawhi, and then you had Russell Westbrook who was guarding. Norman Powell there for a bit. Then he was guarding James Harden. And then he would like,
Solid
you
four
know what
guys
I mean? Like just all what the only like matchup that's set in stone is Zubac and Jokic.
every time.
Yeah, just that. You know what I mean?
Duke it out, dude.
Exactly. So Billy, with all those playoffs matchups, is there any teams that you think maybe could pull off an upset in round one?
I think Golden State is like the one that I'm looking for. They're dangerous in the playoffs. They got the right,
Mm-hmm.
they've had the recipe for a while. They were that team to beat for a while. So
Yeah.
I think they've got enough veteran guys on their roster with Steph and Draymond that are going to go out and lead that team. So I think the Rockets are going to be in trouble from that standpoint. One game that I'm interested in that I want to see your take on is the Knicks and the Pistons. From game one to game
Mm-hmm.
two seemed drastically kind of different in terms, the Pistons came out slow, lackadaisical, but they look good in
Yeah.
game two. So I want to see your matchups and where you see this series going.
The Pistons and Knicks.
The Pistons and the Knicks.
Yeah. So in game two specifically, on from the Knicks standpoint, they just did not get anything to fall in game two.
Yep.
You know what I mean? They were still generating shots, but they didn't have the scoring output that they did in game one, the consistency, the number of people that were making the right plays, you know what I mean? So, but you got to then give credit to the Pistons for making the adjustments, right? So the other thing to keep in mind with that series is who, if we're being honest, who has the best player on the floor, right? So when you look at the Knicks, there's Karl Anthony Towns, there's Jalen Brunson, both all-stars, right? One might even be an all NBA player this year. But you look at the Pistons, Cade Cunningham, who could have been in the MVP discussion, right? Like that's how valuable he is to his team, like what he does from an offensive standpoint. This guy the point forward, like he brings up the ball, he initiates the offense at times. He is directing traffic. Like the game is slowed down so much for Cade Cunningham that he knows what time it is. To quote Damian Lillard, shout out to Damian Lillard.
Yep.
He knows what time it is. But uh, so for that series, it's going to be can OG, can Mikal Bridges, can they slow down Cade Cunningham? Because if they limit him from a scoring standpoint and make him more into a facilitator, that forces the other players to have to step up. But if Cade Cunningham is getting whatever he wants in the half court, the Pistons have a great shot to beat the Knicks.
Yep. Right, and I think you did like talking about it. You're right. Kate Cunningham is the guard that it could be running away with the league with
Hmm.
his crazy play style and controversial. A lot of people around the league have thoughts on Kate Cunningham, but the bottom
Hmm.
line is the dude can hoop. And
Oh yeah, over 25 points a game.
Hooper. I mean, like
Yeah,
he's in the
definitely.
conversation. But you also got to look at
Yeah.
like Tobias Harris led the team in minutes. He played 43 minutes, 13
Oh yeah.
rebounds. It seemed like the Pistons. Like I'll go over some of the rebounding stats. Jalen Duren 13 rebounds. Cade Cunningham 12 rebounds. It seemed like they controlled the boards. Like they were
No, yeah.
rim and frequent early on, and either not giving up a lot of second chances or getting second chances from themselves down by the rim.
No, yeah, they got great positional size, the Pistons. They got guys that get after it on the boards. Even Thompson, man, that dude's like his effort, and he only gets like just over 20 minutes a game, which is crazy. But there's so many guys there on the Pistons, right? Like they even got Malik Beasley, like you were saying, Tobias Harris, that veteran, that savviness that he brings. A lot of people have always, bashed on Harris. Uh, Compared him a lot of the times, but I think a lot of people forget he was an all-star at one point in time there with the Clippers under Doc Rivers. So he can ball. It's just he now like that type of role that he's in this point of his career, I think is like that's why you see him thriving, right? Like how you're saying in this series. Like plus he's been in the playoffs numerous times. Another thing though, I think we need a monitor for that series, and it's kind of been an issue throughout his tenure, no matter where he's been, is Tom Thibodeau's rotations and minutes, this guy will play his starters if he could 48 minutes of the entire 48 minutes. You know what I mean? He don't give a dang about his bench. Like, or like, he'll only go 6, 7 players, deep rotation wise, if that at times. So like, that could be, and he's done that throughout the regular season, not just the playoffs. So like, maybe that plays into a factor if the Pistons, you know, are just enforcing their style of play, that physicality up and down, trying to, you know, that could that could be a factor, Billy, in this series. I think that's one thing I would
Right.
monitor.
Right, and that's going to be a factor going if you make it late into a series as well. Like you
Yeah,
know,
exactly.
rough travel days back and forth, and then it's like, hey, we got to win. We got to win this. This is the must win. This one's the must win.
Right.
So,
Mm-hmm.
no, that minutes played is definitely going to be a factor going into late in the playoffs, even late into a series early on in the playoffs. So,
For sure. Yeah. And it would be great for the Knicks to, I'm gonna come out and say it, if they lose first round. Their fan base, oh my gosh. Again, I'm biased, of course. I'll admit it, folks. I'll be the first to put the hand up. Heat fan here, so, but like, especially like on the, like the big sports like media platforms and stuff. Some of these like hosts that are avid Knicks fans, I'm just like, oh man, they get under my skin.
I can see
So
that.
that's I'm like, I hope they lose. You know what I mean? Like,
True.
but the series that intrigues me the most, I would have to say, aside from the Nuggets Clippers, is still in the West, and it's that 3-6 matchup, the Lakers Timberwolves. So just the theatrics and the intensity that that first game had was crazy, Billy. Like even though like it was kind of a one-sided game, like we said, 117 to 95, but like the intensity was there. Like Anthony Edwards celebrating on Luca's face, like in Luca's face as they were jogging back up the court. Anthony Edwards arguing with people in the crowd. I'm not going to repeat what was said. There's no need for that. But like, you know what I mean, Billy? Like playoff basketball. Like, obviously, we don't want like the interaction with the fans, but like the 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 competitiveness that is there, right? Like people view Luca and LeBron, you know, faces of the league, right? A lot of people then view Anthony Edwards as the new face of this new generation. So, and Edwards doesn't back down from anybody. Like you saw that there for the Paris Olympics. It was showcased in last year's postseason run. Like if he's performing well, he's gonna let you know about it.
See, and I think that's just like where people get mad. It's just that he's going to beat you. He's going to be loud about it.
Hmm.
What are you going to
Yeah.
do to overcome that? It's kind of that old Cam Newton, like, yeah, if you don't want me dancing in the end zone, then stop me. And you're like,
Yeah. Keep me from getting to the end zone, right?
then stop me. Then stop me. So,
Yep.
like, I got it. I love, I love the game. I
Hmm.
recognize it, dude. I love the intensity. I love that he's shown that he's that guy in the league. And ultimately, I think, he's helping carry that Timberwolf team to something special. I'd love to see it.
Yeah.
And I wish we would have seen it maybe a little bit more with, that younger generation of the with Zion and some of the other people that were kind of around that class. But
Hmm.
we've seen it with Shea. We've seen it with Anthony Edwards. We love to see this fucking younger generation. Oh, my apologies. We love to see this
Hmm.
younger generation come out and just hoop and be loud. And
Yeah.
I'm for it. Like I'm the same way
Be
with it.
themselves.
100%. I'm the same way with baseball. Like, let that
Yeah.
guy pimp a home run. Let that pitcher, if you struck out, let him scream and yell while he walk off the field.
Yeah.
Do whatever he does. There's emotion to this game, and that's what makes us human. Is like, hey, like we're
Right.
emotional. Like that defines
Hmm.
us literally to what we are. So I'm here for letting them players express themselves how they want it, as long as it doesn't result in obviously fights, crazy language. If as long as it's not disturbing the game, let them
Yeah.
come at it.
Great point there. I wish I had the soundboard today, folks. That would have been the perfect one right there. You know what I mean? So, but that's all we have to discuss today, folks. It was a great episode we discussed. the NFL draft, some bold predictions concerning Shedeur Sanders, also involving Shedeur Sanders and his teammate Travis Hunter, their jersey retirement at Colorado. Over in Major League Baseball, some surprises from an individual standpoint and team standpoint. Some first basemen, shout out to the first basemen doing their thing. Some teams that are off to great starts and not so great starts. And the NBA first round playoffs, or excuse me, the NBA playoffs and the first round matchups that are transpiring at the moment. Keep we'll keep you up to date on that, folks. You know, the playoffs as it goes on. Make sure to let us know your thoughts and comments. Billy, where can they find you on your social platforms?
You can see me down here if you're watching at Billy the Thrill on Instagram and at thrillythebill on X.
And you can find me on X at MattMTZ108. Appreciate it, folks. Make sure to subscribe. Turn on the notification bell for alerts. I'm Matt Martinez. That's Billy Ryan. This is the Matt Gets It podcast. We'll see you next time.